Saddle up, cowboys. We're going to Texas. In fairly dramatic fashion, Elon Musk announces a surprise exit from California for SpaceX. He just got fed up with Gavin Newsom. Recent earnings report in the guidance from Chevron, they decided they're going from California to Texas as well. Their move was a long time coming, and there's some reasons for it. Maybe it's less of the politics there, less of the PR, but there's 7 other major billion, tens of billion, $100 billion companies going from California to Texas. And I know there's this big temptation that it's California, it's the homelessness, it's the crime, it's illegal immigration, it's the politics, it's the cost of living. Well, from the perspective of strategic advisory services, let's break this down. How much savings can they expect? What is the real difference going to be? And we can do this with numbers. We can quantify it. But there is also this qualitative aspect to it. I mean, let's just look here. This is Lorena Gonzalez. She was an assemblywoman for California, and I believe she's the president of California Union. I mean, message loud and clear there. And then the irony that here's this one letter to the editor. Chevron is leaving California. Too bad it isn't leaving the planet. So California, the sentiment is so anti-business. They want big oil gone, and then in theory we wouldn't have gas-powered cars. But they want the number one, I mean, far and away, massive majority, far and away, number one electric vehicle producer. Pretty much the only guys that can produce electric vehicle that is decent and at a decent cost margin. The only people who can produce these is Tesla. So they want both gone? You don't want oil-powered cars, you don't want electric-powered cars. What are we going to do? Just ride scooters? So it's a real problem. You know, we used to be a real democratic republic of capitalism here in America, but there is this weird lingering sentiment that is anti-business, anti-wealth, tax the rich, tax them more, tax them again, tax them more. Is not a favorable place to be. So, you know, when you can quantify the numbers look better elsewhere, and you can make it a qualitative assessment too. I'll be happier there. I'll get treated better there. You got some leverage, you know, wine me and dine me. Take me out to dinner. Give me something in return. You know, when you're producing jobs and you are a net positive benefit for the state, you don't want to get treated like trash. So let's dive in. Let's see what else we can see here. It's Elon Musk, so we're going to touch on that theme plenty. But Charles Schwab in the financial services sector, all right, this is a much different industry, much different rules and regulations. So what could it be for them? Cost reduction. Interesting. 2 more Elon companies, X, formerly known as Twitter. Musk claims it is because of a new law that was passed in California that he claims is harmful to children. SpaceX, another Musk company, find a place where his business can thrive more. Not everyone is going to like these politics, but that is Musk's claim on why they are moving headquarters. These two are important because they highlight some important items. Okay, so Oracle went from Redwood City, California to Austin, Texas, but a year later moved to Nashville because Nashville, according to the CEO, was a health center. Okay, so it just made sense. It was logical. It wasn't about the politics. And then here, look what we have here, huh? $65 million in incentives to bring Oracle to Tennessee. Cut them a deal they couldn't refuse. That's business. How about this one? Not software, not tech, not Elon Musk, but rather 100 years of California for this real estate company. Whoa, so what's the politics here? What's the big idea? Turns out they moved to Dallas in 2020. Not everyone was moving to Dallas, but the headquarters making the move. They had a large portion of the company located in Dallas, so the president of the company resides there. Just made sense. Okay? So you got to be careful with these headlines about everyone's leaving California. This one doesn't seem like a real big thing. Just, you know, one reason or another after 100 years, made sense. A lot of history with this one. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. HP was the company that started Silicon Valley. Wow, end of an era. Why did they go over to Houston? Made sense financially, less taxes, and operationally. You know, can't argue with the numbers there. And AECOM. The move up to Dallas allowed the company to come closer to the tech and company hub of North Texas. They left some pieces in California, but moved the headquarters. So probably tax play. Markets are forward-looking. The price per share of any given stock right now is not about the past 6 months or 12 months or few years. It's about what's going to happen in the next few weeks, few months, few years. It's about the growth story. When a company stops growing, the price per share is going to start decreasing. That's just the way it works. Look at the energy market right now. These guys are producing some of the most free cash flow in the world, but since they're not growing, it's companies like Nvidia. Okay? Look at California here. They're not growing anymore. Shrinking population. Who's leaving? A lot of wealthy folks. When they leave, they don't pay taxes in California anymore. They're going to places like Idaho, Nevada, Arizona, Texas. They don't want to pay these big tax bills. Meanwhile, something like 1.9 million unauthorized immigrants have come into California. As an owner, operator, as a CEO type, someone who has to be responsible not just for the business operations, but has to make strategic decisions, you got to consider these variables and what it's going to mean. Are there going to be demographic issues in California? Socioeconomic, socio-political unrest? Is that going to mean taxes are going to increase? Are you going to be on the hook for things that you really shouldn't have to be? I mean, think about the theft that we saw in places like CVS in San Francisco. I mean, how do you pass those costs on? It's going to affect you at the margin. So these are things you got to consider. On the left here, the high school graduation rates. 87% is the average high school graduation rate. California right at the average rate of 87%. Texas is higher at 90. Just about the highest in the nation, if not for 91% over in West Virginia. But hey, at the margin there, 90%, that's 3% higher. And you're paying lower costs. You might have a better talent pool there. I'm just saying. Fortune 500 companies, California still leads the way with 57. But as of this video coming out, we might see this scale start tipping into the favor of Texas. Texas looks like it is becoming the proper business hub, and they're going to make it count. That's good governance. Interesting one here. The income an individual needs to live comfortably, 114,000. Whew. That is something for California. And the median income by state, 124. So this one is an interesting one because California, you can see this is apparently what is being earned and what is needed. So surplus for California, whereas Texas, you need 87,000 and you're getting 71. So we talked about socioeconomic and socio-political type of issues we may see in California that we might not see in Texas, but the income story tells us a little bit something different there. So I guess with the favorable business conditions, this is probably part of the incentive for the Texas government to try and create these favorable business conditions. We looked at individual a moment ago. What about for a family? Well, for a family, 277,000. Two working adults and two children. That is quite a hefty sum of money just to make things work. Lower in Texas, still, boy, we have a serious inflation problem in this country, my goodness. But still, lower in Texas. So you can imagine the incentive to bring businesses over there, particularly the big boys, the big businesses, try and create more jobs, make it more attractive, and try and find a way to increase that income to make it affordable to live there. Meanwhile, Texas does not have the same cost of living as California. My goodness, about as high as it gets. A couple of these guys in the East Coast there, that's probably New York, probably New Jersey over there. But California up there, some of the highest cost of living in the country. So there's something to be said for living in Texas, and the businesses, they want to get those tax breaks. They want those lower costs too, and it works. It works for everybody. So why not do it? Okay, let's dig in and get a little bit more specific here to close things out. Let's estimate the exact amount Elon Musk could save by moving from California to Texas. The state income tax, 13.3% for high earners in California, whereas no state income tax for Texas. So let's think about SpaceX. Its valuation about $200 billion. And California and the federal government has been proposing these untaxed, unrealized gains taxes. I mean, you know they're going to try and claw that away. Do the math on 13% of 200 billion. We're talking about 26, 27 billion dollars right there. Not that they could claw that away, but you know, when the government starts thinking about how to get your money. Property taxes, the cost of living, we saw some numbers there. Business taxes and incentives. Incentives is a big one. Think about Chevron is another one with the incentive. I mean, Texas is a drill baby drill type of place. They've got all sorts of different projects in the energy space, oil and gas, renewables, you name it. And we saw it with one of them, I forget who it was, the guys who left to go to Nashville. 65 million in subsidies and incentives from the government. Hard to ignore it. He's thinking about tax benefits. He's thinking about the regulatory environment. I mean, my goodness, do you guys remember this? The shareholder vote from Delaware, where after Elon Musk was able to 10x the value of Tesla, at the time that was agreed upon, people laughed at him. Then he pulled it off. And then afterwards, retroactively, some lawyers who are not even shareholders tried to claw that away from him in Delaware. And he's feuding with the liberals. I'm sure they could come up with some type of funky way to come after him. So he wants to go where he's going to be treated favorably. It's the cost of living, it's the talent, the infrastructure. Texas, for example, 3% higher high school graduation rate. That's going to turn into something in the next generation. There are the political and social factors. All right. So, I'm sure if you really were to dig into it, you do the old pros and cons list, you can come up with quite something. Now, Chevron. They cited the business environment, the cost considerations, the regulatory and tax environment, economic diversification, and corporate strategy. Now, all that being said, they continue to maintain significant operations and investments in California as the state remains a crucial part of its business portfolio. Well, naturally, they've got some drilling going on, being close to a port in Long Beach, for example, or all the activity that goes on that flies through the West Coast between LAX and San Francisco. Sure, plenty of business operations, but I mean, the 13, just if there's one big takeaway, 13.3% tax in California, 0% in Texas. I mean, if there's one big takeaway here, more than the politics, more than I don't like Newsom, more than the cost of living, 30%, it gets me thinking, I'm here in California. Am I a sucker? And I've advised people, I know that I am a sucker, as a matter of fact. I know it, but I want to be close to my friends and family. So, hey, we all got to go and make our own decisions. Reading further through Chevron here, they cited tax savings, cost of living, and the cost of real estate. Important, especially for energy companies. They need big amounts of space. Regulatory environment, economic and industry benefits, strategic positioning, central location. So that makes a lot of sense. They want to maintain their strategic location in California, but why not expand? Think about the access to the Caribbean, Central America, a little bit closer to the Atlantic Ocean. Obviously, it opens up some more possibilities for them. And the incentives and support. We saw the 65 million lure somebody from Austin, Texas to Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, it's business, baby. Make me a deal I can't refuse. And what option do I have? So I think this is an interesting situation. I think politics is similar to a business market, similar to an economic cycle. You have periods of boom, you have periods of bust. You have a pendulum swing far to the left politically, it swings back far to the right. It's just the way things go. Politics gets more polarized. Same way economies' valuations get more stretched. The bubble gets bigger, then it pops. You have a recession, could be a depression. Times are hard. We go through periods of austerity, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. Great ideas, great men and women make great things happen. The economy booms again. Valuations get stretched. Bubble pops. Recession. Maybe this sounds like kooky talk because the past 10 or 15 years with the zero interest rate policy, we've some people my age might not remember what it feels like to be in a recession. But these things happen. People eventually vote with their wallets. And, who's going to vote with their wallet quicker? Joe Blow on the street or a business leader in $100 billion or $1 trillion business? Business person's going to be first, right? And then, people, average, ordinary people, are eventually when they start feeling the squeeze and they feel the pain, then they can vote. They can write it down. They can put it in the ballot box and say, I'm tired of these politics. And politicians are pretty smart too. They're going to figure out a way to pin the blame on somebody else. And, the system, it ebbs and flows. It adapts. It's so easy. It's tempting. I'm not super pleased with what's going on in California myself, but I don't want to fall into the rabbit hole of the temptation of blaming everyone else. and saying it's politics' fault because you got to take individual personal responsibility and accountability for what's going on. If you're displeased with something, take action. You know, there's nothing stopping you from spending 183 days in another country and getting a sweet tax credit as a non-U.S. resident. I used to do it. I know strategies of doing it right now. Mexico's not far away. You could open up a business in Paraguay, bank account in Panama, start getting a little shifty without breaking any rules. So there's always ways around it. But uh, I do think California will have to come back down to earth at some point here because, if these businesses leave and the cost of these social programs is so enormous and it's getting larger and wealthy people are leaving, well, I don't want to use a derogatory term, but people with less wealth and fewer assets are coming in, then it's a smaller taxable pool. So you're going to end up with higher costs to maintain the social programs with fewer tax receipts to draw from. And then where does that get you? Maybe someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes governor of California again. But we'll see. There are ebbs and flows, and I think these are conversations that are worth having without any hostility or without any polarization, and figure out if it makes sense. My company, we advise people all the time on tax strategy. That can be about which investment accounts and which investment vehicles you use. If it makes sense to be in something like growth, for example, or high dividend, then you're creating fewer taxable events by holding positions that don't pay a dividend, for example. So you can get shifty, you can get creative. But the bigger things, like we're talking about a 13% tax rate versus a 0% tax rate. Obviously, it's like that's where the conversation has to start. Let's not worry about a dividend. Let's figure out, hey, do you want to headquarter your business elsewhere? Do you want to reorganize this as an LLC or as an S corp instead of a Schedule C, Schedule K, or a limited partnership? Do you want to reorganize? Do you want to move states? How big of a move are you willing to make? And maybe that question is, how bothered are you by socio-political, economic factors? How bothered are you? Is it annoying, but it's fine? Or is it like, is make or break? Because that's a good way into the conversation if there's something that can be done or even should be done or, you know? But yeah, I think I don't see anything too crazy here. I think I respect the moves that are being made by these big businesses. I wish them all the best. I'm curious to see how things play out here in California. I'm sure this conversation a few years from now or a few decades from now is gonna, we might make some predictions that turn out to be true, and we might be way off on some other ones. Could just be a drop in the ocean in the grand scheme of things. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I think this is one of the fascinating topics of our time. So curious to know what all of you good folks think out there. Alrighty, take care.